Well, let's get started. And first, I just want to say welcome. Thanks for coming out. It's our annual ward meetings. Tonight is Ward 3 and Ward 6. So, and if you're not from either of those wards, you're still welcome. But you're going to hear the same thing if you go to your other wards. So, and tonight's not about us, not about me. It's about you guys. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your concerns, questions, whether, why did we do this? Why didn't we do that? That's fine. And your comments. And we also take compliments. Sounds funny, but this group of people behind me works very hard every day to make Bedford just a little bit better each day. And so sometimes it's good to say, hey, I like what you're doing here. We'll take all the criticism, we'll deal with it, and try to make things better. But sometimes it's good to tell these guys, hey, you're doing a good job. And, a pat on the back goes a long way. And I could pat each one of these guys on the back every day for the job they do and for the citizens. And that's what it's all about. How can we make Bedford a little bit better each day and keep things going? As you're going to hear in a little bit, because after I'm done, we'll have the councilman say some words and then Mike's going to give a presentation. But you'll see that things are moving upward. We're on an upswing, which is great. Since the Great Recession in 2008 and everything was down and we were just worried about keeping people's jobs, keeping the services. But now we can look a little longer term and say, hey, we're not totally out of the woods, but it's good. We're putting a couple of bucks in the bank every month, which is a good thing to plan for whatever comes down the pipe in the future. I do have one thing I want to say here. Frank LaRose, our Secretary of State, just sent us a proclamation on our population from the census that was just taken. Our official population right now is 13,149. We went up a little bit. Went up. I think that's pretty cool. Because we've been just a steady decline over the years, as have all these suburbs around here that we have to compete with the suburbs farther out and all that stuff. But Bedford here is home, and I think everybody in here is here because they want to be here. And I know I am. I know years ago when I retired from the fire department, the question I always got is, where are you moving? Florida, Carolinas? I said, no, I'm staying here. I said, why do I said, we love to go travel and visit all those places, but we want to come back home to here. Because I love it here. This is, where I'm born and raised, and my last stop's going to be down there on Broadway. So they're going to plant me down there. But with that, I want to get the why we're here to talk about the wards and your concerns. And I want to start off with Ward 3 Councilman and also our Vice Mayor, Vic Fluharty.
Hello, everybody. I know you thank you all for coming and everything. We're glad to see you. If you don't know me, most of you here do. I see a lot of people from the ward here, which is great to see some familiar faces. But I'm Vic Fluharty, Councilman Ward 3, and I'm here to explain, to let you know what's been going on in the ward a little bit, to where then Mike's going to go over the details of everything. We've had a lot of construction in the area. We had Forbes Road done in the last year and a half, 2 years since the pandemic. We had all this other stuff going on. We got Union Street, thank God, is getting fixed now. And when he sent me a text for that, I said, here's the big one, Elizabeth, it's finally coming. Because we've been knocking on that door for 2 years. But anyhow, that's getting done. We also have We did the Egbert Road Bridge construction area, that got done this past year or so. And we're working on Broadway from Forbes to Northville Road, that needs to be addressed. But we got most of the roads in that area pretty well under control, and which is a good thing, finally. But we also, just so you know, Exelia has been hiring, if anybody's interested. They are getting ready to get things going and getting up and running. And we went up there a week or two ago and looked inside the plant, and it's very, very promising what they're going to do there. They're raising, getting a lot of people to come to work, which is good for the city. And they're also getting some medicine out that people need. So that's a good thing. We're getting some jobs back at the old Bedford place. Trying to think what else. Up by Tinker's Creek, Industrial Parkway area there, we're finally doing some things there. We're getting some movement on things, and once again, Mike will explain more about that, but we're getting some interest there. The old car wash on Broadway is, we're getting some interest there too. It's for sale, that property, and we're like I said, getting interest of some people. We haven't finalized anything yet, so we got a lot of paperwork and stuff and ideas to go over yet. But I'm trying to think, the biggest thing, I know it's been probably even at the other ward meetings, is we got a lot of problems in the neighborhood with trash. And let's face it, I know it, everybody else knows it, but you know, we can only do so much. You know, we're gonna start putting some, hopefully, cans around more. But you know, the biggest thing is people gotta get educated, quit dropping the trash on the ground. And until we do that, I don't care how many trash cans you put out there, they walk right by and put it right on the ground. So that's a problem, but that's a problem in society, period, anyhow, unfortunately. And so we gotta deal with it as best we can. And if anybody's got any ideas about it, we'd be glad to hear it. But also, a lot of problem with speeding. Speeding's another situation that's bad in all neighborhoods and all cities and everything else. And we only can do so much once again. You know, all the police officers are out there as much as we got to work. But you know, it's like anything else. You go speeding somewhere and there ain't nobody there to catch you. Well, I go do it, I get caught. I don't know about anybody else, but the point of it is they can't be everywhere. And it's a problem. And we got them going down the side streets. They don't stop for stop signs. I've sat there and watched them go right through the stop signs. There's nothing we can do about it until we catch some of these guys. And hopefully we start getting some of them, get lucky. But it's a problem. It's a problem everywhere, not just in Bedford. It's every city, people I've talked to everywhere. Trash and speeding is something that this younger generation, I would say younger generation, but it is. Unfortunately, they do a lot of speeding, and it's just the way they drive. But as far as the neighborhood, I've got on a lot of people in the 4 years I've been out there. The grasses are getting cut. My first year, I think I turned in 30 yards within a 2-week period. And then now, I think I did 4 this year. So the word's getting out. You don't cut your lawn, I turn you in. So I think it's really, you look at the empty lots that we have and all the corner places, our grass cutting guys that go out and do the grass cutting for us are doing an excellent job. They're really staying on top of those empty lots and corner spots where they used to be very high as you pull out on a main street or something. So we got some people doing the right thing here. And so I'm glad of that. That's one thing I think we've really come a long way with. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Mr. Saunders. Are you going to do it, Tony?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I have a small role here today.
No, all right.
You know, I take my thunder. Before we get to Don, I want to just say thanks to a couple of our council people that have shown up tonight. Jeff Asbury from Ward 5, Wally Janudis, Ward 2, and I think that's it. And the other person that's one of our council teammates is Tracy Simons, our clerk of council. So if you call in, you'll probably get her. And she does a great job keeping us on track and typing up all those little minutes that you read on there. It's a big job. And with that, we'll have Ward 6, Don Saunders.
Good evening, everybody. It's good to see a large crowd in this room again. It's been a long time coming because of COVID pretty much, but it's ironic that Ward 3 is the match to Ward 6 tonight, because I grew up in Ward 3 on Henry Street. So I was there until I was in high school, and my parents moved over onto Logan, and then I bought the house next door to them when Mr. Southern, if you remember Southern Melling Insurance in downtown Bedford, when the old man passed away, I bought his house. So I've lived here my whole life too. So Ward 3 has a special place because of growing up there, and of course Ward 6. I've been the council person there for quite a while now. So in any case, Ward 6, it has its share of problems. It's one of the older sections in the city. So as you can see in the presidential area this year, Dominion is replacing every gas line in that section. So that's been our major hang-up for most of this year so far, is Dominion's construction work through the presidential streets. They are not done yet, and you may see straw on the ground. That doesn't mean that's done yet either. That's just temporary to keep it from eroding out. So when they get all the house connections, and that's what all those little black pipes that are sticking up in the tree lawns are, those are the house connections. They have to do those by appointment pretty much, because they can't just shut somebody's gas off and make the connections. So it's going to take a little while to make sure that those are all connected up, and then they will finally come back through and do the restoration. At the rate they're going right now, though, I hate to say it, I don't see the restoration being done before spring, because even if they do it in the fall, it's unlikely it's going to grow. So we will have them around for a little while longer yet. Of course, the big project that got done this summer is Nordham. If anybody had ever driven on Nordham, I'd still say it's the worst. It was the worst street in the city. It looked like somebody bombed it, and it was a road out of Iraq. But it has turned out really nice now. Now, of course, we're getting the complaints that people are speeding on it, but that's par for the course. You may give them a nice smooth road, and people will tend to pick up speed. Before, if you went fast, you broke a wheel. So, but that street has really turned out nice, and we've got a few more hopefully we'll get done here in the next few years. So, as I said, Ward 6 is mostly made up of the original township. So we are a good chunk, really the oldest part of the city. So we've done a good job, I think, in keeping and maintaining things. It was kind of tough when the funds were lean. But we're getting back to our road programs, and we're, as Vic even mentioned, in Ward 3 with their sections. But we're still working on others. I know I've made contacts with ODOT just to get Northfield Road done too, including the bridge, because I deal with them in other capacities, because I do work for other communities. But we are working. It will eventually get done. Money, of course, is always the biggest issue. So when you see on the news, the feds have got this massive infrastructure program, we're hoping to take some of that money when it does come through too, so we can get some of our areas, especially the main lines, all complete. So if you have any questions, tonight is your night. Bring them up. No concern is bad. We'll take everything that you've got. So I'll let it move forward, and it's good to see all of you here tonight, and hope to see you down the road too. Take care.
Thank you. Now we'll bring up our city manager, doing a great job for us, Mike Malice, and give you a presentation to see why we're excited about things happening.
Thank you, Mayor. As the mayor started out with, real quick, I want to obviously acknowledge our team. You know, they're the ones that the ladies and the gentlemen behind me and on the side, they're the ones that really do the heavy lifting day in and day out, and obviously our entire staff. We're very, very fortunate to have the dedicated employees that we have. I want to go around the room here real quick and make some introductions. Aaron Thatch, our Parks and Recreation Director. Frank Yambosi, our Finance Director. Dave Nagy, our Fire Chief. Calvin Beverly, our Building Commissioner. Clint Beller, our Service Director. Marty Stempel, our Police Chief. Jennifer Kuzma in Economic Development. And we also have Mike Callahan here. He's the Assistant down at Parks and Recreation, as well as Jennifer Holland, who is our Assistant Finance Director. Day in and day out, I've said this, I've said it over and over again, it's really an honor to work with this group. If it's calling them at 9 o'clock at night or at 5 o'clock in the morning, if there's an issue, they're at it. And we're always looking for solutions. I will say, obviously, we're streaming this online. A lot of these slides we pulled out of the State of the City. That's also online, or you can go to our website. You can see the presentation. I won't read all of it verbatim, but I'm going to touch on some of the highlights. You can see 2020, where we ended with $1.3 million in our general fund cash balance. We also have our reserve back in place of 5.4. Obviously, we're going to have a little bit of a hit to that 1.3 this year, and that's simply a reflection of the pandemic. The unemployment numbers and things like that will feel that this year. Obviously, we continue to look at all of our operations. How do we accomplish those as efficiently and effectively as possible? And you can see some of the numbers below, some of the CARES Act funding that has come in to offset some of those the losses that we had. We were able to do some programs and projects with some of those dollars, but a lot of it actually reduced the loss that we experienced. And in regards to the pandemic, I'd like to touch on this because it was so important. And again, I was so lucky. You don't realize the team you have in place until those waters are a little choppy. Right? It's easy to manage and get by when things are running smooth. The governor mentioned in late summer, early fall of last year, he urged every community to put together kind of a response team. I'm proud to say that we actually had that in place in February. When that very first announcement came, we put together, we were meeting, I think it was 3 times a week, sharing information, what are our primary goals, and we did. We identified 3 primary goals. The first goal was obviously to reduce the financial impact that we were going to feel. We knew we were going to feel that. We had this guy right here telling us we're going to have a huge impact. How do we limit that? The second piece, we were adamant. We wanted to maintain our workforce. Getting rid of staffing was simply not an option. You get rid of staffing, you reduce services. That was not going to happen. So what did we need to do to make sure we maintained our workforce? Obviously, you saw a lot of communities where they did an initial layoff, where they were bringing people back. We did not want to go down that road. And then obviously the third piece is helping people, helping those in the community. And I want to just touch on our Parks and Recreation Department, Aaron Thatch and Mike Callahan. They did an outstanding job. We had, and I won't name them, we had a couple of different businesses in town that stepped forward. They came to us with about $25,000 in donations. We actually leveraged that money and went out and got some grant dollars to almost double it. And we gave out thousands of boxes of food. It's hard to see in the one photo. That's the gymnasium at Ellenwood, and that was on a every other week basis, filled with food, no matter who needed it. We were giving that food out. Mike, worked together with Jennifer. They put together a component on our website where you can simply enter in there what you need. If there was a senior that needed laundry detergent, we were out there, we were getting it, and we were taking it to them. If it was regular calls, check-ins, we were doing that. We had multiple staff members in multiple departments. I think actually there was some clerical in the police department that had a list, and we were calling the seniors just to check on them. Helping people. That was the name of the game, and they really knocked it out of the park, along with other things. So I just wanted to commend them to, as well as the entire staff, by what they were able to do through the last 18 months. So thank you, all of you, if I haven't said that enough. Couple of our initiatives that we touched on. Councilman Fluharty mentioned Tinkers Creek Commerce Park. You know, that park was developed about 15 years ago, and it has really been at a stalemate, primarily due to the financing that was associated with that park. The land was being sold for over $100,000 an acre. It was only valued at $50,000 an acre. You're not going to get a business that's going to want to buy land to build. We were able to really get creative. Obviously, Cuyahoga County, a huge part in that. Frank has been instrumental, as Jen and Jennifer Kuzma. We are rounding third, and it's imperative that we get home. And we can't make the full announcement yet, but for those of you that have been following the recent council meetings, we've passed some development agreements. We've passed some memorandums of understanding with the county. All of that is associated with that park, and it is freeing up that land for development. It's imperative that we get it done, because I can tell you at least one local business is going to be dependent on that has outgrown their space, and we're trying to retain them, and we want them to call that park home. So we are very, very close. There's more details to come with that. You can see our fire department, we made some substantial upgrades as far as our fleet. Thank you to City Council for supporting that, and Chief Nagy. We put the new rescue squad in service last May, I believe it was. Sometime last summer, I'm probably wrong.
Yeah, February, March.
February, March. Maybe it was the engine that was in May. Thank you. The engine, $658,000 was in service in March of last year, or May of last year. So you can see about $1 million we invested in upgrading those pieces of equipment. The police department, we have our second canine unit that is in place. We had one, we brought on a second, and actually I'm going to throw them on the spot real quick. If you wanted to briefly share, not get into specifics, the mutual aid that we assisted one of our neighbors. Oh, I know you remember it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick, Chief called me the one morning. We had a neighboring department that called looking for mutual aid. They had a shooting suspect. Our K-9 was on duty. They responded. He got the scent, identified where that individual was, who was hiding underneath a vehicle in someone's yard. He would not answer the police. He would not show his hands. He showed his hands. Our K-9 was able to, and we were able to make a safe arrest. Nope. Go ahead.
No, you're good.
No.
So, the K-9 officer gave the dog the command to bite because the suspect, who was believed to be armed, was hiding under a car, wouldn't show his hands. The officers had to get him out. So the dog bit him on the backside, and he showed his hands right away. So we're able to get him in custody. But when the dog is given a command to bite, it's playtime for the dog. It gets all worked up during training and repeated training sessions, and when it's time to get a bite, it's playtime, and they don't want to let go. So when he bit, the K-9 officer gave the command to release, which is one of the most difficult commands to give the dog, because the dog does not want to release once it gets that bite. But he did release right away, which greatly reduced any risk of injury to the suspect or anybody else. So, got his bite, mission accomplished, got him in custody, and there was a gun located also.
It's just an example, and thanks, Chief, for touching on that some more. But that resource, and to have two units, it's very, very, such a benefit to the community. We had one of our units early on when we I think it was our K-9 Mike, who actually saved a female who was looking to harm herself in the park. He found her. We've had a number of stories, one after another, and to have those units here in town is vital. You can see our police department's also been certified through the Ohio Collaborative. That is something that the governor has been urging. Chief Stemple went through that process. We met all of our standards. that were required to be certified. In many cases, our standards were up here and the minimum was down here. We've also, this past year, and again, thanking City Council who supported our camera initiative, all of our officers are now outfitted with body cams, as well as all of our cruisers are outfitted with dash cameras. This is for safety all the way around. It's good for the public, it's good for our officers, and we appreciate council's support there. Infrastructure improvements, you can see some of the things we've done. Union Street finally taking place this year. Broadway Avenue, I'll get into Broadway in a second, but many of these programs, we try to spend other people's money before we spend our own. And we go after grant dollars, no matter how much it is. Union, we did the water line a couple years ago. There was some sewer repairs that needed to get done. We were able to secure a grant for about $320,000 for those sewer repairs. So we're doing that while they're going to be ultimately repaving the roadway. Northfield Road Bridge, working with ODOT. I do believe they're going to be doing some drainage repairs next year before they get into, obviously we have concerns over the bridge itself, obviously the fencing and all of that. Our service director, Clint, has been out. I think he took 80 plus photos, and we are definitely bringing those concerns to ODOT. And then our storm and sanitary sewer program and the annual cleaning. You know, a couple years ago, we started trying to focus more on preventative and not when something is blocked or breaks. And council supported a program that allows us to contract with the county who has the necessary equipment. And we're looking at some of the areas and we're doing regular cleaning, televising. We identify if there's a problem, and then we can go in afterwards and fix that. And Broadway. Broadway Avenue, we met last week. I'll give you a little bit of update on Broadway. I believe it was the mayor and Mr. Beller and myself a couple years ago met with ODOT, and they had initially told us that they were looking to resurface Broadway in 2027. Obviously, that wasn't good enough for us. After going back and forth, Clint was able to come back and said they're looking at fiscal year 2023, which means they could start in the summer of 2022, next summer, which is great. It's exactly what we wanted. We put together traffic studies, traffic patterns, you know, with the 271 project, knowing that traffic increased, and they moved that up significantly, the construction. The bad news is, and I don't want to say it's bad news, but we want to make sure we get in there as far as proper planning, and we need to make some repairs underneath the roadway before they come in and do the resurfacing. There's a substantial water main that we need to address throughout the historic district. There's underground electrical that needs to get repaired, curb work in the historic district that needs to get repaired, and we're actually going to be going out to bid in the coming weeks for that now. I talked about spending other people's money. We were able to secure a $300,000 zero-interest loan through the state for that project, and we're going to be tackling that later this fall, and it will run into the spring. That is, again, the water, electrical, and curb work. It's going to probably be from right around 5 points, maybe just before 5 points, and it'll extend all the way to the tracks, right past the Pompeys. We're having discussions as far as hours of construction hours. To be frank, we're not going to permit that to take place during the day. Broadway needs to be closed off for certain periods of time, and we're going to be recommending evening construction hours for that. This way the road is reopened. It'll be less impactful for our downtown businesses, less impactful for traffic. But again, more details will come, but we need to get our stuff done before ODOT comes in and tackles Broadway. And again, that'll be starting next summer. It's about a 2 it'll probably be more, but on paper they're saying it's going to be a $2.1 million project. We're responsible for 20% of that, and we're responsible for all ADA ramps on all the sidewalks. So we're looking at somewhere probably around $500,000 to $600,000 it's going to cost Bedford to get all of that done. But getting it done is a good thing. Couple of, one thing I do want to make a plug for real quick, under the opportunities community groups. I talked to a couple of the people throughout town, and Frank actually and I had a long conversation too. There's a lot of great things that go on throughout the year in Bedford. If it's Meals on Wheels, if it's events downtown, these things happen because people volunteer. People are trying to do good for the community. And these organizations can use all the help they could get. If it's the Bedford Rotary, if it's the Historical Society, Meals on Wheels, Bedford Downtown Alliance. If I leave any of them out, I apologize, I'm just going off of, but please get involved. If you're interested, sign up. We'll take your name and phone number down, and one of them will, we can have one of them contact you. It takes a lot of work to put events on. And again, I just wanted to make a little plug for that, if you're interested. Grant awards, you can see some of the things I did touch on. Egbert Road, that was $100,000. We actually got half of that paid for through Cuyahoga County. Union Street, I did touch on. Broadway, we already talked about. The tree grant, we did plant 100 trees. We will go after that grant every year it comes out. Okay, that was offered through county planning. Clint and Jennifer Kuzma and Sean Francis did a great job putting that together. Maintaining our neighborhoods. I want to touch on a couple of things. That second bullet. We've worked very closely with Cuyahoga County Land Bank. If it's demolishing homes, and we don't have a lot that need demolished, but if there's some that are an issue, we like to, and we do take the steps that we need to get it torn down. And I would say almost all of them, probably 95% of the homes that have come down, they have not cost us a dime. We've used grant dollars in the land bank. If you've seen on Broadway, we had 591 Broadway, that old animal clinic, that was just torn down. The land bank tore that down. The business owner next door who just completely renovated Mr. G's, which is phenomenal. If you saw the inside, you'd be stunned. You would never believe that it was an old bar, ever. He's inquiring as far as expanding his footprint. He also, the large parking area he doesn't need, so he's going to be adding some green space there. But the point is, we really try to tackle those troubled homes or troubled properties, regardless if it's commercial or residential. But that second bullet, you see as far as the number of vacant, bank-owned, or estate-owned homes, it's about 150. When we were at the height of the housing crisis, that was probably about 350 to 380 on a regular basis. So seeing that number come down is promising. Even when it was at 380, which is a significant number, that is very much lower than what some of our neighboring communities. They were over 1,000. So seeing that number come down to the 150 mark, obviously we want to still see it to go lower. That's a good thing. Zalia, I had a video and it didn't work last time, and but if you go online, you'll be able to see it. I can actually try real quickly, but I do want to mention that there's great things, as Councilman Fluharty mentioned. There's great things that are going on. They just received, had a press release about a month and a half ago that they finally got the FDA approval to manufacture drugs. And that is huge. We remember, ladies and gentlemen behind me and sitting in that room, and we remember when the state of Ohio came in and they said, listen, it's a consent decree on a manufacturing facility like that is a death sentence. It's a death sentence. We're going to need to get creative. It's not gonna happen. And to see where it's at now, really is, it's great. And it will come up. So I'm gonna play a quick video. They shared this. So it kind of says a little bit of what they're doing, and it really is amazing. They have two machines in the, where they're manufacturing, where they're completely, no hands-on, it's all isolated. And the one thing that really struck us was, they had mentioned that they have one up and running now. They have a second that is, I believe it was in Connecticut, hasn't been shipped yet, and they have space for two others. The price tag is ridiculous. I can't even remember what the number was. It was 70
Numbers we
million.
can't even comprehend.
It was something like 70 million for one. But the point they made was, this site in Bedford, these machines, and they're about half the size of this room, it's the only place in the world where this new technology's at. And that's pretty, like, it's eye-opening, that's impressive, like Bedford, only place in the world. So they're doing great stuff there. Meadowbrook, you can see some of the things that obviously opened up, the B&B, the Title Bureau, the Boiler Restaurant. We did have our one hit as far as the former Walmart facility. We had a company that was moving in there. They were actually consolidating. They had 3 other locations throughout the county, and the plan was to consolidate and move into the Walmart. There was a lease signed. It would have brought somewhere between 80 and 100 people here. When the pandemic hit, they lost 8 of their 10 or 8 of their 11 contracts throughout the country. They just weren't in a position to move forward. So the current owner let them out of that long-term lease, knowing it wouldn't have had a good ending, and they're now remarketing that property. But getting into the mixed use is important. We're also discussing the vacant 12 acres at Bartlett in Rockside. There's an interested party that's been interested for about a year. They had their due diligence period was through the end of last year. They were able to get that extended, so they're still going through their due diligence. You can see some of the things. This was the former Mr. G's Tavern. That brokerage firm that moved in, they're just great people. Mike Barrett looked all over. They were actually located in Beechwood, I believe, and ultimately he purchased that building and completely renovated it. The amount of money that he invested is unbelievable. I'm going to touch on the Auto Mile here as well as obviously a huge partnership. They're not just collectively our largest business, but it is a partnership. Obviously, they funded the K-9 unit. For those of you that don't know, they funded what we call the camera initiative throughout the Auto Mile on Broadway and Rockside. There's cameras that are mounted strategically. They're tied into our cruisers. If we need to respond, our officers have immediate information. If we have to, if the Bureau has to investigate something, obviously there's that information that's there. That was about $22,000. It might be a little over. They paid for that entire project, and obviously Chief Stumble is nodding a huge asset for the safety of the community. Earlier this year, they contacted us and they provided the Bedford Schools Foundation, actually Councilman Fluharty represents the foundation, they provided them with a $20,000 donation to help the youth and scholarships, and it's great. They actually came and donated to Bedford just over $50,000. They presented us with a check at the State of the City for a number of different initiatives. One of the things that we're looking at is to expand that camera, the camera project throughout the historic district, down on the Commons. There's a number of buildings down there, the Historical Society, the old church, to have an area that can be monitored for the safety of our businesses, the residents, visitors, I think would be a huge benefit. And having them pay for that is great. And that's why we say it's a partnership. We're at the early stages. Chief Stumple, I almost said Chief Neater. Oh. Chief Stumple.
5 years.
Yeah, Chief Stumple is starting on that project, so look for more of that to come. But again, something else that we'll be able to accomplish by the generous donation. You can see some of the other things that we talked about, obviously, Tinker's Creek. APEC Engineering is another business. Mr. Barry, who's been on Willis for many years, he was able to purchase the former YMCA, which the city took ownership of through a tax foreclosure. And again, completely renovating that facility. It's going to be an engineering firm. He's really doing a great job. But again, we were able to retain a business that was really out of space. And getting creative, Jennifer Kuzma actually said, what about the Y? I'm like, he's not going to want to go to the Y. But Mr. Barry had that vision. You know, the old pool's now filled in, whole machine shop area, and it's really, really worked out well. Couple of the things, obviously we're working with the school district with, trying to provide them information and input as far as the Chanel property, as they look at how they want to develop that. We have our municipal pool facility that we need to look at, primarily the pool house. We did the pool was done in '07, and at the time we cut back just for budgetary constraints on that project, and we didn't address the pool house. The pool house has not gotten any newer. That is still the original from 1964, somewhere around there. It's showing its age.
69.
At 69, okay. I was off. We need to look at a plan for that. We're starting those discussions on how we can address that pool house, what funding might be out there, what grant dollars that we can go after. The NOACA award, Jen did a great job on this. It's something we've been talking about for many years, and things like this take time. It's connecting the metro parks and downtown. We talk about the pedestrian trail down Willis. We talk about the bridge over Viaduct Park to get that connectivity. Obviously, we need to apply for grant dollars. That's well over $1 million project. One of the main sources that you can apply to is NOACA. NOACA has two funding. They have construction dollars and then they have planning, okay? You can't get their construction dollars unless you go through their planning process. We applied once a few years back. We were unsuccessful. We kind of brought it back to the table, sharpened our pencil. What can we do better? Jen actually put together an application, and they awarded us with the planning grant. That's significant because they believe in that project. They don't just award you a planning grant because they think it's a foo-foo idea and yeah, go ahead. It really lines us up once we go through this process and get into the details. I think it was just under $100,000. But that first step is vital. And now we're starting to move through that process of connecting the metro parks and our historic district, our commons. And obviously, once we go through that process, it now opens the door that we can apply for the construction dollars. So our staff has done a great job with that. And then we've also talked about other ideas further out. What else can we do? What are our assets? It's the parks, it's our downtown. And we came up with some other ideas, and we actually talked about this at the State of the City last year, and the plan was to simply present this at our board meetings last year, and obviously we canceled those because of COVID. You know, we've had some ideas, and years ago they talked about, oh, it'd be nice to have a skating draw on the commons during the winter months. We really took a step back, looked at it, looked how can we maybe expand the commons, what can we do? You can see some preliminary designs here that have a large grassy area. There's actually a fountain to where in the wintertime you would bring in an ice feature to allow people to skate. You have the lights downtown. There's a fire feature down there. Obviously nothing set in stone, but these are things we want to start engaging and having these conversations. Is this something that we start looking at years down the road, or look at funding, or what may be out there? You got to start thinking of some of these ideas now, and if it's something that we continue to go and pursue, obviously it's going to be the input of the public that's going to make that decision, but we'd like to bring some of these ideas to the forefront now and have more conversations. You can see, a little bike area. It really, We had the parks out, parks took a look at it, really liked the idea. But obviously, first and foremost, we want to make that connection to the metro parks. And getting that bike and hike path down Willis over Viaduct would be a first step. This is kind of an after that. But you got to start having these conversations now. So, again, always we're here for the input. My card is, I have cards. Oh, there's no cards. Feel free to call, feel free to email. If you go home tonight and say, wow, that's a great idea, wow, that's not a great idea, send us an email. Call us, let us know your ideas. That's what these meetings are for. And that's, with that said, that's all I have.
Very good.
So with that, we want to open it up to you guys. And as I like to do, I'll entertain a question from one side, then the other. And everybody gets one question. Otherwise, we have one person ends up monopolizing everything. So one question here, one question there. Toward the end, you can, same person can ask more questions if we run out of questions. I want to get us out of here by 9 o'clock so we can respect all your time, or maybe before that. So with that, we'll start on the right side. Who has a question or a comment? Yes, Joan.
Keeping in mind how you're saying how our wards are getting older, is there anything that the city does or has or could be in the right direction of having a century home, like a plaque or anything in the houses that are, because they're coming around.
Yes,
Well, yeah, they're already there.
that's a very good point. We were discussing this last year, because you're absolutely right. There are century homes in town, but there's more and more that are coming up. My administrative assistant actually has been working on this for about 6 or 7 months. I know, and I may have some of this off, I think at one point years ago, the Historical Society may have done something. But what we did is, she's put together the parameters. We really reached out. Chagrin Falls does something similar. Lakewood has a really nice program. We put together and we have a draft application kind of ready. We have some ideas for a bronze plaque, what that would look like. We were actually trying to figure out cost, but before, we're really not ready to roll anything out, but I can tell you that we've explored it. We kind of have what that program would look like, but we want to talk to other and get some input from some other entities before we officially do something. Good question.
Over here? Yes.
I pretty much, in the face of Meals on Wheels here in Bedford, so that's why my questions are always going to run. But for those who don't know, we have 70 volunteers in our Meals on Wheels program, and we're serving almost 100 people every day. And that's just the start. And I say that because we're not taking the best advantage of what we can do, or what we know, or what we've learned. We don't communicate. We have so many little nonprofits, including what the rec department did also for the pandemic. They were in a boat. We were pretty much in the same boat, even though our targets were a little bit different. Mine were much more towards seniors. You were at the general population. It was my understanding. But we never once ever spoke to each other and said, what are you doing that we can help you? What are you doing that you can help us? Now, some of the little nonprofits that makes seniors an incredibly good place to live is Bedford for seniors, because of the different advantages that we offer. And Meals on Wheels is just one of them. But we have pantries, for instance, that dot the place. Nobody ever talks to anybody. we found that we could get a lot of surplus stuff from the food bank. Anything we don't use goes to either Hope Methodist Church, their pantry. It goes to our own pantry at the Hunter Center. It gets shared one place or another because nothing goes to waste. But we don't do anything for planning, okay, on how we can work together. We don't know what the other guy's doing at all. And we're definitely not competitive. We don't need to be competitive. Just plenty to go around. But I would encourage the rec department to be the leader and invite us in to talk. Invite us in to find out, what are your hours? What are our hours? How do you refer people? What is the basic information, which can all go on the website. The website is a wonderful vehicle, but doesn't have much on it. When it comes to what real services are underneath all the government services.
That's a great idea, and I think we'd be happy to facilitate something like that.
That, to me, that's your role.
Yeah, that would be great. I got it written down.
So maybe we can talk.
Sure. Very good. This side, yes, sir.
Whose idea was to raise the property tax 17% just in Bedford?
That was the county revalues all the properties. We have
You
nothing to do
guys
with it.
fight with them to bring it down, or just said, okay?
Yeah,
we're gonna-
they announce it, then it goes through,
So they go up, they go through a triennial update, okay? They go over a triennial update, which is what they did. We don't have input in that. At that point, it's gotta get
You
approved.
got all these people
It's
here that are in their middle 60s and 70s and some 80s that are depending on their income. But then you have somebody else come in and take that income away from them. That's the reason why you have all these care places trying to help the residents, because they cannot afford their own groceries.
So basically that process goes through the state, and the state has to approve it, and then there's a board of revision. If anybody would want to challenge that, they have the ability to do so.
Why
So-
don't you guys challenge it? That's the reason why you're in office.
No, it's not our place to, we can't do that. We don't have the, we can't, that's up to private property owners to do that. I will tell you
You guys
that,
are in charge of Bedford, right?
the only thing I will,
Okay.
okay, that's fine, Frank.
In 2008, the city's property values went down 28%.
I understand that.
Went down.
My house, when
We
I
had-
bought it in '04, was 102,000. I can't get even half of that.
Correct. So, it's based upon why they reduced it back then was sales values. People were dumping houses, people were dumping them to just get whatever they could. $29,900 was a house, $39,000, which was ridiculous. Since then, the whole United States has come back. The values have been coming back all over the country. This is where we had, 3 years ago, they did the triennial update. This is actually the 6-year update that they're doing now. The 3-year update's based upon the sales values. That's all they do, they look at that. That went up 10%, so you're still down 18% from 2008. So at this point in time with the budget, the county went out, they looked at values in the 6-year reappraisal is what they do. So they're not only looking at sales, they're looking at the housing, they're looking at everything in proportion to each other and the housing values. And those housing values did go up on an average 17%. Commercial property, I believe, was 10, industrial 8%. So those are all analyzed accordingly to the age of the properties, and each property individually they have to go out and look at, or in those areas. So the county will actually do that in reappraisal. If in fact you feel that that's not been the case, your house is not worth that value, then you do have the right to go to the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision, they will have a hearing for you. With that, you'll need evidence to show why your basis of your
I
property should
understand
be
this,
reduced.
I'm not trying to be
But it's
nasty.
not
I
our
just don't
situation.
understand when nobody puts up a fight saying, no, we're just getting over this, give us some time to regroup.
Every 3 years they do that. In the past, I'm gonna tell you something, when other cities went up 15%, we went up 3%. When other cities went up 20%, 10%, anywhere in there, we're going up 1%. So over the years, the valuation of this city has not kept up with what the other cities have done. So it has been lower, substantially lower. Even reflected by many of the entities that analyze the city, and they look at that and say, your valuations are much lower than the areas. So in that case, I mean, yes, values did go up, but they're still slightly below on an average. That doesn't mean your house or a specific house went up more. It just means on an average, they're back to where they were in 2008. So we're finally catching up to where we went down back in that period of time. And yes, your house was worth a lot more now. Now the houses are worth a lot more. And they're definitely going for a lot more now when you're going out there to sell on anywhere in any city. So those prices have all come back. Southeast area Cleveland has finally come back to a level that we were in 2008. So at this point, that's why the values were so high all of a sudden, because they dropped all of a sudden like that back in 08. It's the best I can do to answer your questions. If you have any concerns, border revision, they'll open that up shortly as to filing for those, your households, and you could go ahead and apply for those revisions. So when it's 17 now, that doesn't mean it stays there. It means that that's where it starts from, and then from there, based upon people's protest or application for reduction,
Yeah.
then it drops from there. So we've had years when we were at like 10%, it drops to 7. We've had years where it went up 3, and we didn't even get an increase. So there's a lot of years like that too that happen. So it doesn't mean that that's how it will stay. It is a percentage. It'll be depending upon how the final houses are reevaluated through the board of revision too. So we wait for that answer too. So right now there is no set amount specifically that come in our way.
Yeah, and if you're watching the paper when they give the home sales in town, we've actually had a lot of houses go for over $200,000, which never had that before. So showing these values going up, which is contributes to this increase. Over the site. Yes.
Since I'm only allowed one question. I'm a resident of the Villa San Bernardino seniors residence, and I have approached the city manager, city inspector, my councilman, on an issue that we've been having. We have 45 units and only 21 parking spaces. So it has definitely been a problem for the seniors, because we do also have residents that are under the age of 55. But my big question also now is we have a security problem. I want to know who to go to and approach that we have a security problem where we have residents that are leaving doors unlocked and open where anyone can ever, an entrance in and out. And I caught it 3 days myself in the evening, had to go and close those doors. This Testa does know about it, they were notified, but we've written to them, we've tried to contact them, they will not respond to this. So I'm going to the city and saying, hey, what can we do as residents, get them to protect our seniors? Please. Anybody wants to answer that?
So I'll just touch on real quick, we have a direct contact, a gentleman that, I will say, I mean, whenever we've had concerns, I know there was a concern that someone had called and said that they got rid of their manager and they weren't filling the spot. And I called him, the gentleman, I will say, is always very responsive. They were going to fill that position, I believe they did. They were interviewing and whatnot, but the point is, he's very responsive. I will contact him tomorrow and bring that question to him regarding the security concerns, the doorways. Obviously, if there's ever any concern, regardless if it's at the villa or anywhere, call the police. I don't want to,
Yes, because our nice office manager was Sister Dorothy, who did retire. And we do have a part-time lady whose name is Lori, but she's only there 3 days, 5 hours a day. And she does nothing when I approach her about the security.
If you leave me your phone number, I will contact that gentleman tomorrow morning. And as soon as I get a response, I'll call you.
Thank you.
But again, call, if there's ever any concern everywhere, if you notice a car that doesn't fit, that's parked in the parking lot and something's odd, call. Don't wait till the morning.
I've had police out 10 times, I've got 10 police reports. Yes, we've had problems.
Yes, I have a thing about traffic. I live on Broadway between Forbes and Union. There is the people that go from the one light to the next light, go fast, and there are children around there. And I'm concerned that sometime somebody's going to get hurt because nobody ever nobody ever gets ticketed through that. I'm not saying anything against the police, but it seems like there's nobody ever watching the traffic up there.
Well,
And I'm just concerned about the speeding.
yeah, we have several areas in the city, actually all throughout the city. I'm sure all of you have problems with speeders in your neighborhoods and on your streets. And we are aware that's definitely one of the areas that we're concerned with too. I will put a special attention out for that area specifically. But again, we know that's a quality of life issue, and we're trying to do the best we can with what we have. You may not see us enforcing it, but we are up there. I know not as much as you would like to see, but we're trying. There's a fine balance I'm trying to do throughout the city. It's, you know, we've had an increase in violent crimes and major crimes, but we also have a big increase in quality of life issues like speeding, trash cans left out, and loud music, and you name it. You guys know it as well as I do. Well, I'm trying to keep a lid on the major things and not lose sight of the quality of life issues. All right, because I do speak with all the neighboring chiefs. We have meetings all the time. Some of our neighboring cities, their violent crimes and major crimes have increased so much, they've lost sight of that quality of life issues. And they're trying to do the best they can in their cities also, but that's one of my main goals, is not to lose sight of that. So I'm going to do the best I can. I did add another officer to our motorcycle unit. I know it's getting near the end of the season, but that's basically a traffic unit. And we're going to try to get more increased visibility in all the side streets and the problem areas, and that's definitely one of them.
I do just want to add real quick, and the chief puts together stuff regularly, sends it over. And the one thing, about a month ago, he sent over, we've really done it, our officers have really focused on some of those quality of life things. I will tell you, our traffic citations and parking, if it's overnight parking or, if it's parking on the lawn, whatever that is, they've both of those, the parking issues and traffic, the number of citations this year compared to last year have tripled. And he's really put a focus on that. One of the things, for those of you that we've gotten a number of questions, we have a couple of speed monitors that have gone up. They track data, that information. If someone's, I got speeders on Paul, we'll put it up, and we leave it up for a month, and we get that data back. And it really helps us determine, is there really speeders? Or, someone's going 75 down the street, well, that data will say, well, someone went 40, but no one went 70. We look at that. We have one permanent one that's mounted
It's on Broadway by the Pettis Car Wash. But we have another one, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
We have another
It's your show.
unit that's portable, basically portable. We can move it around different locations if we get a request for one, or if we see a problem area, we can put it there. And we'll review that data, and that could show us when the biggest problem is, what time of the day, what days of the week, and we can focus our efforts first on those times and days. And it helps us do the enforcement, so.
Put it on Broadway.
And I will add, just so, if you see that up and you don't see it flashing or showing a speed, it's working.
And there's
Just
different
leave it at
modes we
that,
can
because
put
I
it
don't
on.
want to get it, it's working, it's collecting
Yeah,
data.
there's different modes we can put it on. We can black it out so it doesn't show any speed or any strobe, but it's still clocking the speeds. And that way people don't know it's there, and they're gonna drive like they normally do, like idiots. And we can track that. Or we can put it on there with a strobe light, set it for 5 miles an hour over the speed limit, and sometimes that's enough to slow the traffic down, because they think that the traffic camera they think they're gonna get a ticket. So there's different modes we could do it in, and depending on what area we put it in and how we wanna track that.
And
Are those
obviously,
lights synchronized?
Pardon me?
Are those lights synchronized, the one from Forbes and then the one at Union,
The traffic lights,
so that they
those
are
are set
green
by
at the same time?
those are set by the state.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
there's sensors.
They're,
Sensors.
both of them have sensors that work individually.
It's between Forbes and
Yeah.
Broadway and Union.
Yeah, but
That is
each,
where the two split.
yeah, each intersection there is
Yeah, especially the trucks.
separate.
They want to get through that green light
Oh,
when
yeah.
they get off the freeway. And they go through there somewhere like a bat.
Yeah, and going from 2 to 1 lane is treacherous. I know.
We need your help on that.
Yeah, we do.
On this side? Anybody? Trish?
Yes, I'm on Union Street. The process of who to call, what to do with dogs barking at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, where do we go? Have we talked about that?
You would call the police department, non-emergency number is 232-1234. Go to our centralized dispatch center, they'll dispatch an officer no matter what time of day or night. And if it's a continual problem, their officers will pass that on to our animal warden, who works mainly during the day. But even if it's at nighttime, the officers will go there, if they hear the dog bark, and they'll knock on the door, they'll address it, either with a citation or some type of enforcement. But any time of the day or night, 232-1234.
That's 1. No.
We're the officer when you need one.
They'll call back now in a minute.
Yeah, Tom Nagel on Pinecrest Drive. Earlier this year, I think in the summer, I had some correspondence with Councilman Kuhari and with City Manager Malice regarding speeding, of course, on Pinecrest Drive, and I'm trying to keep this within one question. And it appeared as if there were some employees that worked at a group home up on Edgecliff, and not a derogatory statement, was just an observation that there were a lot of people who did not live in the neighborhood who were speeding. I contacted Beck and Mike to see about the prospect of a speed bump to be put on Pinecrest Drive to alleviate some of the speeding. As we said, the police can't be everywhere. I know you set the police up, you guys were great doing that, there's no doubt. I literally saw it, but you guys can't be everywhere. So the first concern was that, with snow plows, it's probably not a practical thing to do. So I did a little research and suggested maybe a removable speed bump. It bolts down, you put it down in the spring, pick it up in the fall. I don't know what happened to that, where that ended up, but since that time, that group home has closed down. The traffic has gotten much milder. We still have a few frisky neighbors, but that's beside the point. However, I'm under the understanding, and I think this is just a rumor, that that property is zoned commercial or multi-use, and the rumor is that another group home is going to move in there. So I guess the question I would have is, does the city have any information about that property? And I guess I will take the liberty of asking a side question, and if it is going to be another group home, could we revisit the speed bump concept?
So, couple things, real quick. I'll make sure Mr. Green slows down.
Thank you.
A couple things. One of the things that we'd like to do, so I'm just gonna talk about your specific scenario. And we had a couple of these in the past. When we know if there's a issue, we go right to that issue. And I wanna commend, actually, I believe it was Lieutenant Kellerman. He actually went to the home and was talking to them initially. And obviously, it seemed like it was the change in staff It was when
Yeah.
they were switching over.
Yeah, shift
Um,
change.
Correct. So that was one of the things we like to address, that issue. If we know it's a certain, instead of doing something that may affect, even though that's following the speed limit, it's the appropriate thing, when we know we have an issue as far as those neglecting, we'll go right to them and obviously address it first. The property is zoned residential, that is not zoned commercial. I don't know, I'm not aware if there is another, I know obviously I'm next door quite a bit, that it's been vacant. I don't know if there's another group home moving in yet or not. Obviously, they would have to file an application, but we have a hard, that's not something that we can prohibit. Okay, for instance, when that property was first purchased, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was purchased by the diocese. We actually denied the use, and we were actually taken to court. They tried to sue us. There's fair housing laws. It's not where you can, it's very, very difficult. So, I will say, the diocese, they put a substantial amount of work in that home. The entire home sprinkled. They invested a lot of dollars there. But obviously, we need to keep an eye out, and they gotta go through the proper process, if they're gonna reuse it in that manner. As far as the speed bumps, we did look through that. I know I spoke to a little bit with Chief Stemple and the service director. We reached out to like a lot of neighboring communities. Has anybody utilized these temporary, where you can take them down, pull them back? One of the comments, we haven't found anybody that's utilized them. One of the concerns that one of the neighboring communities brought up is, one, it doesn't seem like much, but it's not as simple. You stake them down and you pull them up. When you pull them up, we're in Ohio. Those got to be properly filled. You start leaving holes in the concrete during the winter months, you're going to have it. It then becomes almost like maintenance, which when we're already thinned out staffing, I know the service director will say, if we get one, there's going to be more that will want that. So one may lead to 10, might lead to 15. I know Paul Street was a concern. I know Grand was a concern, and it gets to like, do we pick and choose? Then is that something we're maintaining where we gotta send a crew out to pull them? We gotta fill those holes, we gotta make sure that the ice isn't getting in there and ruining the road. Those were some of the, and that's not necessarily our stance, but that was some of the feedback that was coming back initially. And it's really when we said, let's address this problem properly. And then we can kind of reevaluate the speed bump idea. So I don't wanna say it's completely off the table, there's some concerns there. But if you're in a street or a neighborhood area and you know of an issue, like a regular, let us know if it's the same car. I know I dealt years ago with Councilwoman Zalata.
Maryland.
And we knew there was this red Mustang, and it was up and down Henry, John. And actually, I think it was Sergeant Kellerman again. It was a 17-year-old that was getting Dad's car. And when we knocked on the door, Dad told us, you will never have another problem with my red car. And it solved the problem. So, but the point is, if you have some regulars, let us know, and we will make that personal visit and try to address that.
Well, while it was helpful that you folks did address it specifically with the employees, in essence, it didn't work. It was helpful, but it didn't work.
Yeah, they closed it 2 weeks later. There's no problem.
This side? Yes, George.
Speaking of Pinecrest, my favorite street, and my driving problems, we have a house out at the end of the street where he became a logging man, stood off as one of his lots, and he dug out part of the Hamilton Parker's trailer. Is that legal?
We actually contacted that individual. He was given a notice. They were out of town. They've come back. They communicated with the building department. I don't know where that's at. If you want to kind of just provide an update.
Yeah, he has filed an appeal to the Board of Building and Zoning Appeals, and it actually goes the 26th of October for the appeal.
He filled it in?
Pardon me?
He said he filled it in?
No, he's going for an appeal.
Oh, he don't went for the.
Yeah, we've given him orders on, he is appealing those orders now, and he goes before the board on October the 26th.
What
To
board
be
would that-
specific-
What board would that be?
Board of Zoning Appeals.
And just to clarify, I believe, and Calvin, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe he is putting in a request to put a parking space down at the
Yeah,
lot.
an additional
Just for,
driveway.
You know, an additional driveway to car, whatnot. That's what his request is going to be.
And the public will have a chance to speak out at the.
Absolutely, yeah, notifications either have or will be sent out shortly to all affected residents with a 350-foot radius.
This side? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Sabrina from 15 Charles. I just have a question about it was the old veterinarian house on Northfield and Interstate. What's going on with that property?
Do you know anything on there?
It's vacant.
I know that, but someone had bought it,
Yeah, they've done nothing with it, it's still sitting vacant.
so who's the owner?
I would have to go back and look at the records, I don't have his name on record, on the file.
But it's a new owner.
Yeah,
It's a new.
Are they
Relatively
gonna do
new.
something with that property?
at this point in time, they have not approached us with anything, other than the fact that we've got orders on it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, they'll have to maintain the building.
We've got orders on the property.
And then there's also, second one. But there's that house next to it, not the house, but then the building next to it. That was a bank owned, and I thought someone brought it, and it's still vacant.
An investor purchased that property at this point in time. I've had a few phone calls from different contractors, but they've never formally submitted anything.
Over here? Jeff?
I walk a lot, and a couple observations. First of all, I was wondering, there's a lot of trees on the tree lawns with tree stumps. Is the city ever gonna do anything with those? I mean, they're city-owned property.
We've attacked them pretty good this summer. Everything that was taken down through 2020 have been removed. The only thing out there now are trees that were taken down this year, that probably going to next year before they're taken out.
Columbus Road,
I don't, was it, how long's it been there? Do you know?
a couple of years probably.
All right, Jeff, next time around, give me an address, and it might have slipped through the cracks. Or a resident cut it down, that's why we didn't know it.
But I have a question on sidewalks. And I brought this up to Mike once before, by Broadway, by Franklin, there's a obstruction in the sidewalk there, and Mike pointed out that it was a hydrant that was broken there. And apparently, nothing has been done with that. And now I see that they just poured a new sidewalk around that. So now, in order to fix that, you're gonna have to break up the new sidewalk that they just poured
This is Franklin and Broadway?
on Broadway.
We'll take a look at it.
And along with that, sidewalks, I was talking, they're doing the gas lines, and I asked the guy from the company that's doing the hookups, what happens to the old gas line? And he said, they fill them with a slurry, and then basically abandon the gas line. So I see a number of gas lines where they put in new sidewalks, and they have the old gas line right in the middle of the sidewalk. I mean, that's a coordination thing on my end. It's like, it's silly that they would do something like that.
Yeah, you would think the people pouring the sidewalk would call the gas company, they go, what's the deal? It's a pretty simple phone call. Thank you.
There's a full-time inspector out there every day. He should be catching that. So,
He's busy, trust me.
okay, all right.
Is that close to Suriname?
This side? This side's heavier with questions. No, you had
If
yours.
we're out,
I'll come back to you, Tom. Yeah.
We walk around, we have 2 dogs, so we walk around a lot. And I think Ellenwood Park is maintained real nice, except the asphalt walkway from center into the park. There's a lot of trash, the trees are overgrown, and you have to bend down to walk under the trees. And where the creek is, it's like it's green. Used to have bullfrogs in it, and now it's just, it looks like, and it smells.
I can touch on that real quick. A couple of years ago, that became completely overgrown behind City Hall. And we actually had someone come out and it was all overtaken by an invasive growth. Don't ask me what the name of it was. And there was actually it was a 2-step process. They came in once, they sprayed it all down. We had to wait for it to die. Service came in, dug a lot of that out. You could see some of it that was dug out. Because what we did, if you remember, we would have a fountain back there.
Yes.
It completely took over, we couldn't even put the fountain in. So we worked with a company, they came in, they sprayed it, we waited. A lot of it died, we actually dug all that out. They had to come back in, they sprayed it again. And then I believe we'll have to dig out the rest to the point where we can then go ahead, have the fountain in and get some of that cleaned up again. But I would agree with you. Right now, it's kind of, we're going through we've never done that as far as the invasive growths, so we relied on a company that dealt with that, and we're kind of working off of their recommendations.
And they could also use a trash can at the beginning of the asphalt walkway and at the end. I don't know if people, they'll probably still throw it on the ground, but at least, I mean, there's food wrappers and whatnot over there.
Yeah, we're looking at trash cans all over the place to see what we can do there. Anybody else?
Can I have a second? Okay. I just want to say,
We won't worry about the 2 questions
okay,
now.
I
It looks like everybody's.
I just want to compliment the Recreation Department on what you guys have done. I mean, something is being done, let alone, I mean, great things, but I mean, compared to nothing prior to this, I mean, you guys have just stepped up and using that building, and every time I get that brochure from the seniors, it's like, oh my gosh, you know, I mean, there's so many things to do, and, which is really a change, and I guess, I mean, especially when we had kind of shut down for COVID, and then you guys are still totally busting your butt doing stuff and coming up with ideas. And I just really want to thank you guys, because really,
Well, it's nice to hear that, and Aaron and Mike and Sarah down there do just a great job, and that's when they came in. They've been there 4 years now, and have learned about the city and what we need, and start expanding stuff. And if you haven't been to Ellenwood, is it open to the public now? It is. Go in there, take a look around. It's all new, fresh, and ready
the
to
gym
go.
looks pretty, by the way, didn't you think?
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
going to the green and white colors for
Yeah.
Bedford.
No longer Ohio State.
And, but yeah, they're doing just a great job down there, and getting some different programs, and bringing in new people in. We got new perspectives, yeah, which is great. New ideas, and they got more ideas than stuff we can do, so which is a great problem. And again, like I say, I appreciate what they do down there, and thanks for your comment.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Anybody else? Yes.
Wait, say, okay, thanks. So also I'd like to give a shout out to Mr. Beverly, who's been working with me and some other people on a couple of abandoned cars parked on property. So all your efforts are appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Like I said, we don't mind compliments either. We'll take your
early on, I think it was you, Mayor, that said, two of the more prevalent problems are lawn cutting and trash. And to me, to have our administrative professionals dealing with such small items we would like to have you folks dealing with more important things. me accountable somehow.
Sure, so, as far as the grass, we did switch some things up a few years ago. In the past, we would simply wait till someone's grass is getting high, then they'd get a notice, and by law, you gotta give them so much time before you can go on their property. What we started doing is, one of the benefits of having our own water department, we go off and look at a list of zero usage, zero to minimal usage. Now, the downside is we can't, we don't see on there maybe a single person living in a home that doesn't use a lot of water or a senior. We just send out letters to everyone, like, this is your notice. The majority of those go to bank-owned, vacant, whoever. But it is basically that first notice, consider this kind of like a warning, that if we have to come out and cut the grass, you're gonna be assessed. And each time we come out, it's $200.
Okay.
So it's substantial. One of the other changes that we did, we used to contract that out every 2 years, and we would get a company to do it. And for the most part, it went okay. But when you bring a company in that they don't know the town, they don't know the neighborhood, they don't know that, that lot's tied to this lot, it could create a little bit of a delay. Well, when you're in May and things are growing, that 2 to 3 days goes from here to here. We actually took on some of that internally, and our staff, the couple of gentlemen that did it, they really did a really good job. They're out there, we send the information over to them. Both of them, when we did it a couple of years ago, they're familiar with the town, lived here, so it really helped. But yeah, it's $200 a cut. Sometimes people are upset and we only have to do it once. Believe it or not, there's some that every year they got $1,200 on their tax bill because we have to cut their grass 6 times, which is ridiculous. But we have that, we are on that. I know Councilman Fluharty is, I'll give him credit, he's the great man, he is all over. He's constantly sending me texts, emails, photos. So he's done a really, he's helped us get ahead of that. Litter, I'm sure Chief will mention that. The hard part with litter is we have to see it. It's hard to see that. And yeah, we can put up cans and signs all over, but we're not gonna correct that ignorance of someone throwing something out their car window. So that's the toughest part. If there is fines, the hardest part is catching them.
And I will comment that, anytime that I have gone to Councilman Fluharty or to the mayor or the city manager, you guys have been very responsive, okay? And I appreciate that. And, within hours, I've gotten responses to my questions. That's very much great. I'm very much grateful for that.
Thank you. We try, and these guys, like I said, they go above and beyond. I could tell you stories about each one of them that doing stuff that you never even see that they're doing, that just making the city better. And again, that doesn't mean we're doing everything 100% right, or we're not perfect. We're always looking to improve, which is another reason for these meetings. And one thing I want to mention before I forget about it, we didn't have a slide up there, was the murals that are going up in town. You've seen the one across from the post office, the Road to Freedom, just awesome. I mean, those 3 girls that worked on it, I don't even know how they have the vision to be painting up here and step back to see something this big and pick it out. And then if you go behind the bicycle shop on Broadway, Bedford Cyclery, on their back wall, go up by the library, come down Tarbell, and there's a beautiful mural of, there's a bike, of course it's a bike shop, and flowers and a couple of birds, and it's just awesome. And we are really trying to encourage other people to step up and do that, because nothing enhances a city more than that kind of public art. I saw a thing about it on TV where this company went in and they were doing, it changed the town completely, just, because when you drove in, it wasn't just another bit, and we have a beautiful downtown. And, but some of these murals, and I keep looking at all the vacant walls that could be painted, and I got a couple people I'm gonna get with. One thing we need is some some benefactors that step up and say, yeah, we can help pay for that. And we have talent right here in town that can do this stuff. We have companies that will come into town, like these other two were from Cleveland. Great organizations, but just something simple like that makes you feel better. And you see something like that, and maybe you're not so quick to throw something on the ground if you see these beautiful pictures. So it's just my 2 cents in there, but now Pat.
But since you're open for compliments, I would like to say, I want to thank Mike for showing that film clip of Zelia, of how they're producing and being able to, I do know people that are working there now. We have a few of us here that retired from Bedford Laboratories, and we remember the days when we went in and hand did the pushing and the stomping and the packing. And so it's such a wonderful thing to see that they are being able to produce, because Bedford actually produced penicillin.
Yeah.
So thank you for showing us, that was great.
And it's huge. We got to, Mike and I and Vic and Jen got to a little private tour of the thing. They just happened to be in a switchover, so we could actually go in and see some of these machines that when they are in production and stuff is so regulated on, germs and contamination. They have to take a 3-week class, these workers, before they can even enter that room to start working on it. Not even what they're doing, just to go in there and how clean it is. And after we left, they said, yeah, they got, 30-day cleanup in there because we were there in street clothes. But to see these machines, and they ran some with, dummy bottles, just amazing. And the money, not to make excuses, but you see where these drug prices are so high. You see what they have to go through just to produce one vial. It's amazing. And if they happen to get lucky and hit that one big drug, well, they're gonna make tons of money. But to get to that point it's just truly an eye-opener when we went there to see what they're going through to do. And they're all excited to be here in Bedford. They got people from all over the world working there. They got the best of the best coming in, and we left there really impressed with what they're doing.
One of the things that they came up with is, it's their bag line. And, you go into the hospital, and if they gotta put you on a medication, they gotta get the bag, and they gotta mix it and fill it. And, they explain that it could be an hour to an hour and a half before that bag gets in you. And that time, especially if you have something, this is how they were explaining it. You go in and you get sepsis or something, you don't have hours. Well, this new technology that they have, actually, it's all filled, the bag's opened, it's filled with the pharmaceutical, so in this instance, it's I don't even know how to say it. Vancomycin. In this scenario, it's opened up, it's filled, it's resealed, packaged, and goes out. This way, if you're heading to the hospital, it's within you within minutes. They can go right to where they need to get it from. And that's a new technology that they developed here, so it's a big deal.
Yes.
We were talking about Broadway with traffic, with the, up there is Carrollwood School. And I'm telling you, when I live right on Broadway, right between William and Henry. And that section right there where the Carrollwood School is, those trucks, those cars go through there. I feel sorry for that animal warden who works there at that station all the time. I mean, if you just sat there and watched them, they don't even pay attention to the yellow flashing lights. Isn't there anything you guys can look there and help him or something? Because one of these days, one of those kids is gonna get hurt.
He's told us the same thing, and we have been up there a few times with him.
Good.
And, we know that's just,
It's a bad, I don't know if there's another one in the city that's as bad as that.
that's the worst one. Obviously, it's a main street, you got a lot more traffic there.
And the school
A little bit higher speeds, but
Yeah, if you sit there and watch it, you just see these kids coming in. One of these days, I know there was one accident in front of our house, because we live in between there, with, someone wasn't paying attention, and she rear-ended the guy in front of her. which isn't anything unusual, but there was that school, I just feel sorry for that animal warden.
Yeah, just to let everyone know, our animal warden does double duty. He doesn't do it on the clock as animal warden, but he also works as a crossing guard. And we just allow him to take the truck out there because it's got lights on there in case he needs
Right.
them. If there's a traffic problem, he can pull out there and assist. And he also works as an auxiliary for us too, so.
Yeah, but that,
covers all bases.
that's one section you guys should be up there sitting.
There was some concerns, just to add to that, Councilman Fluharty contacted me about 2 weeks ago. There was concern with school letting out and the traffic. It was actually coming down Melba out to Broadway. The schools were aware of that. They were trying to address it. We brought up those concerns, and obviously, I believe it's been corrected. A lot of it is people's fear of, they wanted to pick their children up and maybe keep them off the bus for safety and COVID reasons. They've seen an influx in pickups. They did, I believe, add one class, but they made some adjustments. They sent some information out to the parents and the families, and it seems to have corrected itself. But early on, there was an issue with the traffic coming out of Broadway.
Tough to see.
And we can go in every ward and pick out a street that's got a problem. In front of my house, they come,
Yeah, with the school behind it.
with
you
the
know,
school
behind-
complicates things.
Yeah,
Yep.
that makes the difference, you know.
Yep, down on,
those kids.
Turney Road by the school.
Oh, yeah.
Everywhere. And it's a shame, people just don't care anymore.
No, they don't.
How do we make them care?
I don't know.
And Mayor, let me expand on that just a little bit. And speaking about the area chiefs that I have constant contact with, we're all experiencing the same issues. A huge increase in speeding, pursuits, because people don't want to pull over for us for a variety of reasons, and people don't want to comply with us. That's why police departments are in the news all the time. But we've seen a huge increase in that since Cleveland Police had the consent decree put on them back in 2012-ish with the Tamir Rice shooting, and then that pursuit they got in where it was a big cluster where they ended up shooting those two people at the end. So Cleveland Police were put on that consent decree where they weren't allowed to do basically anything. They weren't allowed to pursue anyone. They had a no pursuit policy, and they still have it. And the population in general in this area know that Cleveland's not going to pursue them, so they assume that all the suburbs aren't going to either. And that just creates lawlessness. I mean, people are driving worse than they've ever driven in the area. And again, we have more pursuits than ever, but we still pursue. We don't have a no pursuit policy. We're going to catch them if we can. So, and we're going to do it safely, obviously. But it's just a society thing, I guess. Just they think that the police aren't going to chase them, aren't going to address things. The whole COVID shutdown just magnified it all because they felt that the police weren't out there. So that's why when things opened back up after the lockdown, people are driving like idiots, and we're really trying to address it. But it's a problem everywhere, not just here.
And that's a good point, it spreads. When your largest city isn't pursuing, they assume everyone. I mean, the chief would give stories where our guys, simple traffic stop, they wait till our officer gets out of the car, and boom, they're gone. And now we're stuck, you know, and we will pursue.
Any other questions? Yes.
Not really a question, well, yes, but a comment also. A couple months ago, I looked out our window, our front window, I live on Union Street, and there were 5 police SUVs who had stopped a car, and the car had, some of the SUVs were in the gas station across the street. But I was, you know, and there were 5, so I'm just wondering, and I don't think they found anything because they let the boys go, but, and I'm not sure about that though. I'm just wondering, I know I always thought we had police cars, and then I see 5 SUVs on a Saturday night. Were those all ours, do you think? And I'm just wondering how many
In that area,
cars do we have? It was good to see that.
we typically have several on the road at a time, and we do have many SUVs, but in that area, it could have been, we could have been assisting Walton Hills, they come through there a lot.
Oh, okay,
But we do have a lot of SUVs, so it could have been us. And
right, no more cars, more or less.
we have a couple, but
So, okay,
but
just
the
wondering.
trend is the SUVs are,
They looked, they're much bigger,
yeah,
of course.
but they're much better to drive
Yeah.
for police work now.
And in the evening, it was dark, and with all the red lights going, it was quite something to see that. Thank you.
Dan, a quick point on the mural you were talking about at the cycle shop. It's too bad that they couldn't have put that at least on Targo, because it is really nice, and it's in an area where you don't see it, you know.
I know.
But it is nice. But at a point about, I see a guy every morning. He walks up Broadway, he walks through the whole area, picking up trash. And the guy, I mean, every day he's out there with a 5-gallon bucket, and he walks around. When there were masks all over the place, people think a disposable mask is supposed to be disposed of on the sidewalk. I mean, he was picking up everything. The guy's name is Mitch. I don't know if you're familiar with the guy or not.
Yeah, actually, I don't know his last name, but former councilwoman Heather Rhodes, I think, kind of gave him a shout out at one of our council meetings. I can't remember his last name. I think it was like a year and a half ago, she brought it up. And yeah, he walks every morning, picks up the trash, total volunteer. I'm not sure where he lives, but I am familiar with it. Yeah, she acknowledged him on the floor the one evening, just for that simple, the act of what he's doing.
Yeah, because he's out there, usually I'll give him a couple bucks, buy a couple coffee or something, but, I mean, nice guy, and, a real nice service for free, basically.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we have other people. I know Sandy's got a group called Bedford Clean. She's got a bunch of kids from the high school. Actually, I go out and help pick up trash around in her area, and we're trying to encourage other areas to pick stuff up. I know I see some walkers in my neighborhood. They stop, pick stuff up, and they carry a plastic bag with them. That stuff's tremendous, and that goes a long way to helping the city look better. But the massive trash that people just throw out their car windows is terrible.
Mayor?
Yes?
I want to make one quick comment. Don, raise your hand, Don. He does pick up all the trash around his area too. I see him out there every morning when I take my walks on the car, I do the park and come out through. He's always out there picking up everything on Broadway within 4 or 5 houses or whatever up the street. I don't know how far he goes, but thank you, Don, for doing that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know the priest up at Our Lady of Hope, he walks around his neighborhood picking up trash too. So there's people out there doing it, and we're just trying to encourage more people to do it. Don't go out in the street where you're gonna get hurt. Anybody can pick up. It just helps a lot. Any other questions? And then we're gonna have a couple comments from our council people, and seeing nothing. I'd like to, Don, we'll let you go first this time, if you'd like to make a closing remark.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody once again for coming out. This has been videoed, so I believe we can watch it again if you want to, or those that didn't make it can pick it up. But as usual, if you've got any concerns, you can always contact either the city manager, you can call me, I'll get back to you. And, let's keep this town going the way it's been, usually upward, and move forward into the future. Thank you.
Dick, and I again want to thank everybody too. A lot of my ward guys are here. I see it all, and like we said earlier, we're not perfect, but we try and we care, and just like you do, that's why you're here. And we're trying to keep this city going and forward with everything. all the trouble that's around us anymore. It's not getting any easier, that's for sure, but we're the last of the Mohicans here, and we're helping keep this city going. So I want to thank all of you for some of your ideas and concerns, and it's glad to hear that it's on everybody's mind, the same thing. We're all on the same page. Thank you.
Good, and thank you all for coming. Good discussion. We got some things to talk about, and just appreciate you being here. And again, you can contact any of us if you have a situation, so. Thanks.